and I'm here to share with you your December marathon options on the South African road running calendar. Not a huge amount to choose from, but the good news is there are 4 confirmed marathons, and some years we've had no marathons in December. So you've got 2 on the first weekend, both in the Eastern Cape. Then just before your public holiday, you've got a new marathon in the Northwest Province. And finally, to see out the year, we've got a province in the northern extremities of Limpopo. And we'll be covering the details of all of those marathons coming up. So your first option on the 7th of December is the Nelson Mandela One City Marathon. As you can see, nice flat route, what you expect in this part of the world. Now, the first 18 kilometers, they run in a loop and a bit of an out and back section. You run these with the half marathoners, and that's probably the most attractive part of the course. After which, there is this long out and back section, which is in the blue. And then you've got a couple of Ks to head back to the Fairview horse racing track, which acts as the race venue. As you can see from the profile, very flat route, no real hills along the way. Highest point of the route, you meet it sort of between 25, 26K mark, and you've got a total ascent of about 250 meters over the course of the marathon. Now, races in PE or GQ, they tend to either hug the coastline, you don't see any beach or any seaside at all. This is one of the latter. So although you're in the Sunshine Coast, you don't see any of the Sunshine Coast during the race. However, you are running out of the city through countryside and many quite pleasant roads. With the race being, or with the race venue being a horse racing track, you should be aware that there are 3 main hazards to contend with. Firstly, make sure that you pick the right spot to flush away your excess funds. For the record, I went with a safer bet. Secondly, you want to tread carefully to avoid the lump sum deposits left behind by the horses who have strayed from the track. And thirdly, and most importantly, with this being a horse racing track, make sure you don't trip and break your leg on the finish line. Now, it can blow pretty hard in the Windy City. As you can see here, even concrete road signs aren't safe. And if you do look at that gentleman on the top left of your screen there, the guy rocking the dad bod in the background, apparently he was scared shitless. Now, before I ran the race, Algoa FM radio presenter Carly Fields warned me about the second half. So she said, and this is the direct quote, "The route is quite boring from the split where the 21K athletes head home right until you finish. She told me I've downgraded to the 21 thanks to the flu this week, but safe to say no FOMO for the marathon. Benoni marathon vibes loading." Now, I thought Carly's comparing of a marathon route to Benoni was pretty harsh. However, it was not long into the second half of the race when I realized that Carly had not oversold her description. Whilst I would not classify One City as a destination marathon, it is definitely a good way to close out the year and get a fast and flat marathon done before the December excesses take effect. And for those of us in Gauteng, you could always close off your running year by running One City and then open next year's account with Johnson Crane to see whether the Benoni comparison is fair. As you can see from this picture, Julian, my friend Julian, he's happy wherever he runs marathons, as am I, for the record. Last year saw the inaugural Mdantsane Marathon being held. I've run the Real Bejeemers 50K, which is a lovely race, highly recommended, and that finishes in Mdantsane. But I can tell you, man, the hills in South Africa's second largest township are something else. As you can see from this profile here, and look at that elevation gain around this single lap route. How does this compare to the Soweto route and vibe? Soweto obviously being the largest township in South Africa, Mdantsane the second largest. Well, I'm hoping to travel down to East London this year to find out, and I'll report back. Then you've got a brand new marathon in Tong on the 15th of December. Great way to get your long weekend off to a flyer, and probably a lot of people will be taking leave from after that date. So Tong is a Setswana word meaning a place of lions, and the name of the marathon, sorry, I'm going to butcher this, I apologize, Ditau, Diarora. It means the lions are roaring. Now, I don't know too much about this marathon, other than it's a figure of 8, single lap course, and you run on bitumen tar road. except apparently there's 1 2K on gravel road. It is quite a long distance. So this town is right down in the sort of southwest corner of the northwest province. It's about a 5-hour drive from Joburg, and Julie and I are planning a road trip to find out for ourselves what this marathon involves. Now, if you really want to finish off the year strong, take a trip north for the Nzhelele Valley Marathon on the 28th of December. I treated my wife to a romantic weekend in Louis Trichardt last year to run the inaugural race. It's an undulating out and back route with a few good hills, as you can see, and definitely a much more difficult second half. You start from the township and it takes one through the natural beauty of the Nzhelele Valley. River views and indigenous baobab trees along the route, they give the race a natural breath of clean air. The turnaround point is actually right at the Nzhelele Dam. Interesting enough, the Nzhelele River is named after the unique direction in which it flows. So most rivers will flow in South Africa, they flow west to east, but this one flows from east to west. And actually the name Nzhelele apparently means exactly that, upside down or back to front. Last year, directly after crossing the finish line, you are bombarded with burial service offerings. Now, that's what I call ambush marketing. I did ask them if they provide exclusive cover for dead legs, but they told me that they only offer a full body service. Now, I did promise you a bit of information about what I think is the most festive race on the calendar. And you know, I normally only focus on marathons and above, but I did think this being Christmas time, it's appropriate to give a special Christmas mention to the Illovo Christmas Challenge. You're doing that 30th, it's their 30th anniversary this year, and the first 1,500 runners will get a free t-shirt. If you're wondering what this funky top is that I'm wearing today, that is from last year's race where the lovely people from Westville Athletic Club invited me as their guest. 15K is certainly the most festive on the calendar. Most of the clubs run in a group with floats, full of what I guess you could call the festive spirits. Now, the clubs, they all try and outdo each other with their floats, their outfits, and the amount of alcohol that they consume over the route. The floats definitely arrive back at the finish at the Westville Clubhouse considerably lighter than when they left. Last year, the Hillcrest Villagers, they took the best float title, although it was reported that Dave Campbell Hall as a gingerbread man was surprisingly easy to catch. Now, this time of year, it is important to choose the right running club. As you can see from this picture, or inside this picture, you can see the Team Vitality trolley crammed full of all the healthy foods that runners like to eat during a race. However, I can tell you that the Vitality runners weren't shy at the shooter tables along the route. Even better news is that everyone gets a pancake at the end of the race, courtesy of the race sponsor, Illovo. And I can tell you those are very, very tasty after a nice 15K run. Now, this being the December video, I thought it would be appropriate to end with a Christmas wish. Mine is that we get the Comrades Board we deserve. And I really hope that all CMA members in good standing will be attending the AGM in person or online on the 30th of November and vote in a board with vision that will put the runners in the race ahead of their own greed and self-interest. That's not the runners' greed and self-interest. That's some members of the board self-interest, as I'm sure you can tell. Now, on that note, I do have a couple of articles to write. I'll see you on the road, but don't forget, you can, of course, get full details of all of these races on my blog. There is an article for every single month of the year giving absolutely every detail about every marathon. And you can also find race reports, detailed race reports from all the races that I have done since I've started the blog. Great. And have an excellent Christmas and New Year.